Welcome back to Breakdown. Today is Tuesday, March 28th. JJ, Final Four is set.
The Final Four is set.
You ready to talk Big Ten, SEC, and everybody else?
Yeah, Big Ten, SEC, the one seeds, and the teams that are actually going to be playing in the Final Four. Because it doesn't include any of those.
You ready to do it?
I'm ready to do it, sir.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
JJ, what if I told you that in the Final Four, there's a matchup between a Big Ten and an SEC that's supposed to break all kind of viewership records, and there's two SEC teams in the Final Four and one Big Ten team in the Final Four. What would you say?
I would say, what year are you referring to? Because it can't be 2023.
I'm talking about the women's tournament.
Oh, the women's tournament.
The women's tournament.
Think about that.
Two SEC teams and one Big Ten.
Iowa, South Carolina.
The Iowa-South Carolina matchup is supposed to break all kind of women records for viewerships. So it wasn't all bad. Now you want to switch over to the men?
Yeah, we can switch
Let's
over
go to the men. JJ, who's more disappointed, SEC or Big Ten?
That's a good question. Well, in different ways, they should both be disappointed. The SEC had more opportunities to advance. They had 3 teams in the Sweet 16 to the Big Ten's 1. But the Big Ten actually came the closest to advancing. Michigan State took Kansas State to overtime.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone should be pretty upset about how things turned out. The Big Ten and the SEC are known as like the conferences with the deepest pockets and most amount of money, and you expect a little bit more return on the investment than each conference has gotten in the past couple of years.
I'm gonna say this: the SEC should be more disappointed.
SEC, okay.
They had the number 1 overall seed, and that number 1 overall seed lost to San Diego State.
They did lose to San Diego State.
Their key player didn't perform the whole tournament, basically.
Yeah,
for Alabama.
And in his last game, he was the only person in tournament history to shoot under 20% on. I can't remember how many shots it was. Over 20 shots, though.
Okay. And then when I look at Tennessee bowing out, their coach has bowed out early repeatedly.
Rick Barnes does have that reputation, although he did make that one Final Four with TJ Ford.
Additionally, the SEC has not played in a championship game, NCAA basketball championship game, since 2014, JJ. 2014.
Yeah.
Okay, JJ, but the Big Ten can be happy themselves. Their number 1 seed, Purdue, lost to FDU.
Fairleigh Dickinson, yeah.
Yeah.
Our first one in the tournament.
Okay, what can the SEC and the Big Ten do to turn this basketball thing around, this March Madness around? Is there anything they can do?
Well, recruiting talent in the transfer portal more than ever. But recruiting talent is very important for both conferences. They need to do that more. The Big Ten doesn't emphasize recruiting high school players out of high school as much. Only Michigan State, Michigan, and Ohio State have really gotten McDonald's All-Americans over the past 5 to 10 years. And none of those programs do it consistently enough.
JJ, I'm going to say that the SEC has recruited better than they've ever done before.
They have.
I think they recruited tremendously. I think they're up their coaching level, and yet and still they don't get this March Madness thing. They can't get into the tournament. Is there any underlying? I mean, they can't get to the championship game, basically. They
Advance, yeah.
Is there any underlying reason? I can't think of anything. I mean, you mentioned coaching and recruiting. I mean, you mentioned recruiting, coaching. I mentioned coaching. What's going on?
Well, to some extent, it is a random tournament. It's not the best way to select the best team in the country. It is just a tournament style situation. It's not even really like a playoff.
It's a win and go home. Yeah.
The last 4 years, every Final Four opponent from the last 4 years has been completely different. There's been 16 different teams over the last 4 years. So it is a little random in that respect. I also think like the COVID year, giving people an extra year, means you have like some 24, 25-year-olds, some like even more like established grown men in the tournament that you normally wouldn't have going up against freshmen. The transfer portal, I think there's a lot of issues that the SEC has to address. But they, out of the top 15 highest paid coaches in America, the SEC is first in the country. They have 5 of the top 15.
What schools?
And by 5 of the top 15, I mean they have 5 of the top 10. They have half of the top 10.
Okay.
Number 1 is Kentucky. Number 2 is Bill Self from Kansas, but just in SEC, number 4 overall is Rick Barnes. He's number 2 in the conference.
So Tennessee.
And
so we got
Bruce
Kentucky, Tennessee, and then
Yeah.
Auburn. Where's Auburn? What number are they?
They're number 5 overall, third in the conference. They're Bruce Pearl. And then Eric Musselman from Arkansas and Buzz Williams from Texas A&M are tied for 9th.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're paying their coaches good. What about the Big Ten?
The Big Ten has 3 of the top 15.
What 3 of those?
Well, Izzo comes in first for them, 3 overall.
Okay.
And then Brad Underwood is 7 in the country, and that's second in the Big Ten. And then Kevin
Brad
Willard
Underwood
from Illinois.
Okay.
And then Kevin Willard from Maryland is rounded out at 14.
That's surprising.
Yeah, I'm surprised Matt Penner isn't in there.
Why is the Big Ten not paying their coaches more money?
I don't know. I mean, they certainly have the money to afford to. And you think of them more as being a basketball conference more so than the SEC, but the SEC is clearly prioritizing
football.
Well, that paying their basketball coaches as well.
They given the scenario you just
They
laid
have
out.
3 in the top 10. Big Ten only has 2.
And then they
they have 5 in the top 10.
Yeah. That is so given that one, it's random over the last 4 years, 16 different teams, 16 different schools. So next year could be 16 different schools. So you would think that the Big Ten SEC has a 50-50 chance of making it to the dance next year.
Make it to the championship game?
I mean, I'm talking Final Four.
Oh, Final Four? I would say so. And if not next year, definitely the year after that, if for no other reason than you have 4 programs joining those conferences respectively that are...
Okay.
I mean, much has been discussed about how they're going to help the football, but they're really going to help the basketball. USC and UCLA are joining the Big Ten.
Okay.
And Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC. Texas, almost made it to a Final Four this year, and they look like they're really investing in their basketball program. Oklahoma's been to a Final Four in the past 10 years. USC's been to an Elite 8 the past 5 years. UCLA's went to a Final Four a couple years ago.
So it should make things more interesting. You say, as my cousin used to say, average law I would think would mean that the Big Ten SEC will come, law of averages or whatever. But given that they're paying their coaches, they're recruiting like crazy. Kentucky, Michigan State both got great recruits coming in next year.
Yeah.
I mean, even Arkansas got good recruits coming in next year. So the transfer portal is out there. Jay, before we move on, oh no, I won't even touch on that. I won't even touch on that. But the transfer portal, the coaches, the money. The only other variable to me is the money that the players is making. NIL deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can absolutely see how the NIL has impacted the NCAA tournament. When you look at Miami, look at Nigel Pack, the transfer from Kansas State.
Okay.
They got the 2-year, $800,000 deal plus the fancy car from John Ruiz, who normally supports the football program, but followed the basketball program last year and saw how successful they were, and he decided he wanted to invest in the basketball program. And
his investment paid off.
His investment paid off. They're still dancing. They're in the Final Four. He got Nigel Pack to come down from Kansas State, paired him up with Isaiah Wong. They're both Life Wallet representatives now.
Okay.
And you hear his company name thrown around more often than ever. So, I mean, yeah, you see the NIL. conversely, you look at a team like Florida Atlantic, who does not seem to have the NIL type of situation
True.
that Miami has, and couple of South Florida teams making it to the Final Four for the first time in different ways.
Hey, let's give out the Big Ten connection to the Final Four.
Yeah, there's some Big Ten connections to the Final Four.
One in coach,
Yes.
San Diego State.
Yeah, he was San Diego's 63-year-old head coach. Was the understudy for Steve Fisher, formerly of Michigan.
Yeah.
The guy who built up San Diego State's basketball program for I think 27 years. He worked under them. So
Born and raised in Michigan.
born and raised in Michigan.
Okay. And
Steve Fisher was too, right?
that I'm not sure.
Pretty sure.
Well, we know Oates was for Alabama.
We do know Oates was,
Okay.
and we do know that the guy that Steve Fisher succeeded was born and raised in Michigan.
Yeah.
Before leaving to take the Arizona State
I
job.
think the Alpena area.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, JJ. You wanna where you wanna go now?
Well, now I'll just say, yeah, the law of averages. I would echo that sentiment. The law of averages. The Big Ten has had at least 8 bids last 3 years. And the SEC is growing their bids. They had 8 bids for the first time.
The last
In a long time. So I think just law of averages, they're gonna make a run. They're gonna do some things.
the last Big Ten team to win it, we all know, was 2000 was Michigan State. The last Big Ten to play in the championship game was Michigan against Villanova.
Yeah.
2018, they lost that one.
Badly.
And then 2015, Wisconsin played in a championship game against Duke. But it's been tough for the Big Ten and the SEC. But I think all of that's going to change. JJ, who will it change with first? Will it change with the Big Ten first or the SEC? Who's more likely to get to the championship game next year?
Well, I think Joe Lunardi already has Kentucky as his number 1 overall seed for next year.
I think he had them as number 1 seed this year. Going,
He did.
So, okay.
But
maybe he's a big fan of Calipari.
But people already compared Kentucky to the Fab Five, and they're talking about how, is this year's recruiting class comparable to that freshman class that Michigan brought in?
Okay.
So the pressure is going to be on Kentucky.
I agree.
But I also think the pressure will be on Michigan State, depending on who comes back, because they will have a nice blend of seasoned veterans with a legendary head coach and a top 5 recruiting class.
Okay. So you've told me who's Joe Lunardi is picking next year. Who is JJ, the sports savant? Which conference, not which team, but which conference is more likely to break through? You have more faith in Calipari and his recruits, or you have more faith in Tom Izzo, his recruits, and his returnees?
I do have more faith in Izzo, and as interesting enough as it is, I have a lot of faith in Matt Painter. I know how horrendous his Big Ten, his NCAA tournament resume has been.
You stated it the last podcast.
But I can't get out of my mind how Virginia lost to a 16 seed in the next year, they won the championship. And if Zach Edey comes back, they might have the talent to do just that if they attack the NIL. Nigel Pack was one of the guys I was considering Purdue. They just didn't have the NIL
and he's
situation. He's with Miami, and he had 8 threes this past weekend in a game and led them to, the Final Four. And that was a guy that Purdue was in on, but they didn't have the NIL situation set up. The Big Ten has the money for it. If they can just allocate the funds in the proper ways, I really think that they can get the personnel to bring in. And I do think Matt Painter's a good enough coach that if you give him, the right transfer, the right, dynamic enough guard to pair with Zach Edey, I can see them win the championship next year.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to go with the Big Ten because of teams like Illinois, because of teams like Purdue, because of teams like Michigan State.
Okay. I will say this, in determining what conference will be there, don't underestimate the Razorbacks. Their recruiting class is really good, and they potentially could have several players coming back. Not two. We know that two is definitely gone, but they could potentially have some. Brazil, who's missed the whole season virtually this year, coming back. Plus, their recruiting class currently is ranked number 6, and we know how well most of them did in the transfer portal last year. It's going to be interesting to see who all goes, who all stays. I'm particularly interested to see what's going to happen with the big man in Michigan this offseason.
Hunter Dickinson?
Yes. Whether he stay or go, come back, what his options are. But JJ, let's talk about that upcoming game, Saturday's game.
Okay, let's preview the Final Four.
San Diego State and Florida Atlantic.
San Diego State and Florida Atlantic.
What you like about those teams?
They're both very gritty. They're both gritty types of teams that follow the identity of their head coach. Dusty May at Florida Atlantic will really let guys play with the autonomy to take as many shots as they want. Really, like the good players. He's kind of he's a coach that coaches based on merit in that respect, and the best players really like playing for guys like that, and I really like the way he allows them to do that, but gets everyone to buy in on defense.
I tell you, that Florida Atlantic K-State game was one for the ages. You think the Michigan State K-State game was exciting, and it was. It went into overtime. The Florida Atlantic K-State game did not go into overtime, but boy, that was a heck of a game. I really liked it. So in that matchup, who you got? San Diego State or Florida Atlantic?
I'm going to take San Diego State. They're the older team, and I think that they can dictate the way the game is going to be played. I think they're going to dirty it up and muddy it up. And as much as I like Dusty May and Florida Atlantic, I'm going to take San Diego State. Who do you got?
I got Florida Atlantic.
Okay, we'll ride the underdog.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, Jay, the next one. Miami and UConn. Miami just destroyed the ratings for the Final Four when they knocked Texas out of it. Because it was going to be in Houston. Tickets to the Final Four was going to go for like an astronomical amount because Texas was going to be there. But now there is no Texas school there. Miami and UConn. Talk about that game, that matchup a little bit.
Well, Miami's going to go as far as the backcourt can take them. Brandon Miller, Nigel Pack, Isaiah Wong, those three guys are going to have to show up. Norred Omir, he's going to have to match up with Sanogo. No one in Miami transferred out. There's only Nigel Pack who transferred in and Omir, but nobody transferred out. So that tells you like how united Jim Laranaga's team is.
Okay.
And I'm going to pick UConn.
I was going to say, we know how UConn has been destroying their opposition recently. So
Yeah.
you go with UConn. The whole world is probably going with UConn right now.
But I would not be surprised to see Miami.
And I'm going to go with UConn. So, JJ, hypothetically, if it ends up San Diego State and UConn, who you got winning the whole cat and caboodle, the whole darn shootout?
Well, I think UConn would walk home with their fifth championship in under 25 years.
A dynasty.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Our blue blood.
Yeah, that's more than Kansas in their history of their program, and it's in less than 25 years. They didn't win the first one since '99, so I think that's what happens. What do you think?
I think Florida Atlantic defeats UConn in the championship game. In America, you heard it first right here, from these lips right here. Florida Atlantic, a number 9 seed, walking away with the prize.
It's never happened before.
One shining moment.
Maybe it'll happen this time.
JJ, we giving our takes?
You have.
I think our work is done.
Our work is done, yeah.
WPS, Woo Pig Suey, give us a comment. I know all you guys agree with Florida Atlantic winning it all. If you don't, let me know. Give us a thumb up as well. JJ, we out of here.
We out.
All right.